when they are off. Thank you everyone for checking in on the jail committee meeting. As with all the other meetings, we're gonna go ahead and hand off the presentation to Sam, and we'll talk about where we're at in the construction, where we're going, and then open up the session for any questions at the end.
All right, thanks, Danielle. Yeah, I will. I'll share some photos, kind of like I always do. Then I'll toss it over to Tyler for an update on the project. Can everyone see that? All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'm sure you guys have noticed driving by, but we got a lot of the exterior site work completed. You can see parking lot, and then a lot of the sidewalks, all the around the Sally Port out back, the landscaping. Winona Nursery has been here this week working on the landscaping, so that's coming along nicely. Moving inside, a lot of the interior finishes are nearly complete or completed, and a lot of the rooms have been final clean outside of the floors. We haven't cleaned the floors yet. That'll be right at the end, but here's a look inside one of the cells, and I know we've talked a lot of these naturalized doors. I just put these in yesterday, so there's a look at one of the cells. Here's a look down the corridor. As you can tell, the ceilings are in. The glazing is nearly complete. They're working on that this week. Here's just a look. It's just a lot of interior finishes. I'll kind of go through here rather quickly. Look into the rec room. They installed the hoop last week and the padding, and a lot of the sound mitigating panels have been put up throughout the building. Look inside the cells. Paint is nearly complete. They got to do a little bit of the railing, but they're working on that, as well as the glazing on the mezzanine level. And I'll just scroll through here. Here's one of the bigger day rooms. You can kind of see how the painting was picked out from the county. Here's a look inside one of the cells. This would be the ADA cell. And then here's more of the standard cell. Here's a booking. These are the holding cells off to the right there. This is pharmacy. And then just another look at the parking lot. Yeah, so that's what I had for photos. Obviously, Steve has been doing tours, and I guess now would be a good time to schedule that, as things have really cleaned up over the last week. We've had the cleaners in, so it looks a lot more complete when you take the tour. Any questions on the photos that we went through? Otherwise, I can hand it off to Tyler. But
nothing. All right. So dates, just to kind of give everyone an update on everything. Right now, we're looking to possibly have, I think we probably will, but there might be a chance it will be next week. This Friday, have the fire department through for the life safety inspection for the fire alarm system. If we can't get it Friday, there's a couple devices and stuff they're waiting to try to get connected and hooked up. It'll be next week. So we're shooting to have temporary occupancy with the state, I would say by the end of next week. And then look for final occupancy probably the week of, what is that, August? By August 4th, I guess I would say, except that'll require having the elevators fully inspected, state inspection, tested and balancing kind of complete. But the goal is by the end of next week, have temp occupancy so the county can start using it for training, getting in here and doing whatever. It will not be and no inmate use or anything like that. Then going forward from that, I think, Steve, would you say that mid-September probably would be DOC final inspection with the check off of everything, that you would get basically a sign off so they could use, so the actual inmate usage could start in by October 1st, I guess is the official date. So excuse me, the generator is scheduled to come on July 17th. It was the week of July 17th right now. That's what we have been told. So hopefully that holds true, and that shows up. If we don't need the generator for, I guess when we have to have the drop dead date for generator would be really getting final occupancy, which we're shooting for by August 4th. But the real drop dead date would be when we need to start getting inmates in. So if we don't see the generator that week of July 17th, we'll start looking at getting a temp generator, using the existing generator, or getting a plan B for that. But right now it looks like everything is going to show up and meet our scheduled dates. So hopefully, knock on wood, that holds. So I don't see any issues with that. I think that was the only other real item that we were waiting on. Josh, anything else, or Sam, or Steve? Any questions on that? I buzzed through some dates there pretty quick, I know, but I guess the only other thing, Danielle, I think we've talked kind of doing the AE punch list. Was it July 10th or 17th? Somewhere right in those 2 weeks, kind of get that punch list.
Yeah.
Well, Market and Johnson will do a pre-punch list internally and walk around and kind of get everything checked off as much as possible. So hopefully it's a very minimal list that they walk through. So.
Did you touch base on the LEC remodel, bathroom remodel?
No, I didn't talk about that. I guess if you want to hit that one, you sure can.
So the LEC bathroom remodel, we're currently framing. The framing was done yesterday in there, and the MEPs are working on their rough ends. We're shooting to have those inspections at the end of the week, and then next week start installing the backer for the tile board, and look at getting the tilers back on site to get working on the bathrooms there. We did send out a little schedule. I think last week Steve had something sent out on that. We'll just update that as needed, but we should be tracking pretty good on that.
You mentioned MEP. Is that mechanical, electrical, plumbing, or what is that?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, that was just a guess, but I'm not familiar with that acronym.
Spot on. Yeah, any other questions on what we kind of got laid out? And
Stan, did you touch base with Stanley?
I didn't talk anything with security.
The security electronics guy, we're looking at mobilizing on site the week after next. So around that
10th.
July 10th date, roughly. Yep. Around that July 10th date, tentatively as of now.
If anybody comes in front of the law enforcement center and they see a large handicap outside toilet, that was just us thinking together that in case someone was to show up at the law enforcement center, that there would be times that the bathrooms that was accessible to the public would be closed because of the remodeling. So this old building at 201 West 3rd wasn't designed with enough shutoff valve. So technically, to shut off the water, you got to go shut off all the water in the building. So all the bathrooms in one zone had to get closed off. Then they put the stop valves onto them. So then subsequent work would just be shutting off the bathrooms in the two lobbies. And then it was now created with the shut off valve. So each bathroom can be shut off. So eventually that toilet's going to go. But we just wanted to make sure that until we knew that that wasn't going to be that the opportunity for someone that needed a bathroom, whether ADA or not, that there was something, albeit outside the building, was available. So usually it's not done on these kind of constructions, but being a public building and not a private business, we just want to make sure that if a public person came here, that they had a bathroom.
Okay, two questions.
Yep.
Two broad questions. The first is, where are we at as far as the budget goes and the contingency? I do understand there's been, opportunity to use some of the contingency funds for various jail related things that are not, necessarily directly construction contingency, but just kind of wondering a sense of where all that's at.
Yeah, so I actually need to update some of that today for Pat to walk through it, but the last we had looked at it, I don't have the exact dollar right at the top of my head, but everything was looking like, I would say with what we presented with the contingency and the project, that we had the scope of it, where we were in budget still with it,
Yes.
that we were still sitting in budget. Like I said, I'm gonna get the numbers updated here with Pat, and I can get that to Steve, and he can, share with whoever would like to see that. But we've been meeting kind of monthly, going with that with Pat, because obviously there's owner costs, there's construction costs, but everything construction wise and that side of it for sure is right on budget.
The other thing that comes to mind, just wondering if there's any thoughts about scheduling a public open house for the building, kind of in that sweet spot in between where the construction is done or virtually done, and before it starts getting actually used, and there would be, I guess, additional security issues. I think part of that probably decision would need to play into the, whether that makes sense from the, I forget the name that they're calling themselves, but the no jails people. Do we necessarily want to kick that hornet's nest and stir them up again? But I think for the vast majority of the public, they might appreciate an opportunity to see the facility that they're buying.
That has been discussed, but ultimately that's going to be county administration, the administrator, the sheriff, and stuff like that to make those determinations if we're going to have basically a walkthrough, a public outing. I just want to let you know that we're going to try to review cameras too, because there was a window that was actually broke. So if you look at the kitchen side of the jail, or the 3rd Street side, the closest to the Interstate Bridge, there's a piece of glass, one of the glass windows there, that appears to have shattered. So they're pretty heavy duty windows. So I don't think this was something light that hit that window by any means. Didn't break out because of the type of glazing that's in that frame. But either way, it appears just by looking at it, someone must have picked up something and thrown it at the window. So I do agree, Dave, that his community, not cages, was the one that stirred everything up. And I would assume that, there would be some, that's a good phrase actually, that stirring up the bee's nest. I'm sure that they would do something, but at the same time, I also think that some of them that were against the so-called cages might be rather quite surprised how we built this institution with so much mental health in mind, because with some of the public presentations that I made really early on, I had asked some of the community not cages people if they ever viewed like Anoka County's regional treatment facility, and they said no. And I said I would like to actually have, it would be nice to be on a tour with them to view that, and then come view this, and then see if this is really what they envisioned as a jail compared to a mental health. And it's a jail cell, but the appearance of it is much softer. So it was really designed for mental health. A lot of light, a lot of windows, a lot of color. Mental health professionals were brought in on it. So it's one of those things, I guess, right? I mean,
Yeah, the other thing I know, when we've done some few other jails that they had, I wouldn't say they really opened it to public, but they've kind of given some area to, a little bit, a few areas here and there. I think their biggest concern was security side of it, getting everybody through a jail and seeing all the works and parts and pieces of it, knowing the insides and all. They really didn't want that out in the public. So
well, some of the plans for this facility, the layouts have been, posted online. So I think a lot of that rabbits out of the bag, or whatever the term would be.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good approach. Between the sheriff and the county administration, and that kind of strategizing how to best play that. I think that's a good approach. I'm glad it's being at least thought about, because I think there are pluses and minuses.
Yep.
So what's the percentage that you would put on it now for completion?
Ooh, I don't know. What do you got? What have you been tracking? 95, 90?
That's what I told the other week.
Yeah, I'd say probably 90
to 95.
90, 95, and I would say probably the percentages, obviously the elevator that's getting installed, and then it's really security electronics. That's the biggest, I would say, percentage wise of it. And they can do a lot of that coming up here when they're on site in a couple weeks, but then they'll have to come back again in August, end of August, September to do some final connections, rework, that stuff before we get the DOC inspection. So there'll be some, like for us and our work, like Josh will probably be on site doing punch listing throughout July. With a little bit maybe in the first week of August, but then it'll probably be like we'd be off site until Stanley would be coming back again in the end of August here to finish up the commissioning, I wouldn't say commissioning, but kind of final connections and all that stuff, making sure dispatch is fired up and all that stuff.
How about the parking lot? When we're gonna open that?
Oh, we've just been keeping it shut over here, just to let the asphalt kind of cure out and minimize any damages on it.
Yeah, I would say that's probably more of an internal
That was,
conversation.
yeah, that was me, Ron. They could open that up sooner, but I was worried in 90-degree temperature with the thing just done, whether it be vendors or someone else coming in, they're gonna crank their tires real hard on this thing. It's gonna ruin it. It's gonna mess it up. And it's been probably sitting long enough now where we could probably open it up, but initially I was too worried that this wasn't gonna look nice when we opened it up as a whole in October.
Yeah, the main thing was we make sure we have all the ADA signage back up if it's gonna, because I guess once we open it, it's, the public's probably gonna try to start using it.
I think that's part of it too. As soon as we take the barricade down and start bringing some vehicles in here that where it's going to be a lot of public, I think probably trying to work their way in here and park as well.
And the other thing that hasn't been determined is from the get-go of this project, it was really to be determined how these 35, there's 39 parking spots for our ADA, how the other 35 are going to be used for, whether it be just exclusively the public, would the law enforcement be recapturing some of these back? Would the jail be putting any cars into there along with patrol? All those have to really be determined here pretty short too.
I would say, Steve, we're actually behind the power curve for determining that. That could have been determined on based on the plan with the layouts and actually the signs made and probably, like installed now and then opened. I think that those discussions should probably take place with whatever parking committee or, whoever is that determination. I think that should be happening sooner rather than later. I think, if it's opened up to everybody and then restricted, I think that's going to cause, some people getting unhappy about that aspect. But I think a big parking lot sitting there unopened for no apparent reason is also going to start creating some PR issues.
Yeah,
This is Danielle. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we do want to get our civil team there to review and inspect and bless it before anybody really uses it.
Any other questions? All right.
My question is, we have our next meeting scheduled for Tuesday, July 25th. So we'll hold on that one, and then at that point, I think we can touch base to see when, how many updates you guys want to see, and maybe that's a good question to discuss now. I'm assuming we want to meet until the transition team has moved in and inmates are in. Is that your guys' understanding?
So for now, Danielle, these are scheduled monthly?
Yeah, let me double check to see. I think Heidi had it scheduled. I know the July 25th
Yeah, I think had a third or fourth,
in,
third Friday or Tuesday.
and so is August. and September, or no, sorry. I think, nope, August, September's in there.
I would
October's
suggest,
in there.
I guess my suggestion
Yeah.
would be just keep them as placeholders, and if there's, not a whole lot to discuss, this can be a, 5-minute meeting with those who jump on.
Okay, makes sense. All right. All right. If that's all, I think we can conclude here.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.